Tonight, it could save lives. Sir Chris Hoy's announcement he has terminal prostate cancer prompts a huge surge in web searches about the disease.
Bringing his diagnosis to the public attention could help save other young men who consider themselves fit and well.
Also making the headlines, the First Minister calls on the Chancellor to allow more borrowing following years of underinvestment in public infrastructure.
We're in Scotland's ancient rainforests looking at how volunteers are fighting to protect the habitat.
And in sport, Rangers defender Leon Balogun says their fans were right to turn on the team after the Kilmarnock defeat. I'm Emma Cameron in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Sir Chris Hoy going public with his terminal cancer diagnosis could save the lives of others, according to campaigners. Thousands of people have searched for more information about the disease since the Olympic champion spoke at the weekend.
The 48-year-old reveals he had a number of cancerous tumours which started in his prostate before spreading. Lewis Mickey reports.
And his dad and Uncle Alec died of prostate cancer, Uncle Billy.
Until 6 years ago, Mark from Musselburgh didn't know that prostate cancer runs in his family.
One of my younger brothers was taking my dad to hospital and he said, "Why are we going to oncology?" And my dad says, "Well, my prostate cancer's back." And my brother said to him, "What, you didn't think to tell your 5 sons that you had prostate cancer?"
Despite not experiencing symptoms himself, Mark got tested. He too had the cancer, which had already spread to his bones. The 68-year-old is responding well to treatment but knows others won't be so lucky. Having a father or brother with prostate cancer more than doubles a man's risk of developing the disease.
When we found out about my dad, I was angry, you know. I thought, if you'd have told me 10 years ago, this might not have happened, but it has happened, so I can't do anything about it now, and he can't do anything about it now either. If you think you've got it, go and get tested. I mean, the longer you leave it, the worse it can become. Go and get tested. If you have it, tell your family.
The cancer also runs in the family of Sir Chris Hoy. The Olympian cyclist delivered the devastating news at the weekend that he's got just 2 to 4 years to live. Campaigners hope Hoy's openness can help save lives. Macmillan Cancer Support says that search engine data shows a surge in web searches for cancer in the UK yesterday, the biggest increase seen since the King and then the Princess of Wales were diagnosed with the disease at the beginning of the year.
Prostate cancer is so common as men get older. This prevents us having a targeted screening programme at the moment. So really this comes down to awareness in families. So if your father had prostate cancer at a young age, in his 50s or 60s, grandfather or brother, even if you have no symptoms, go and have a chat with your doctor.
Sir Chris says he's feeling fit, strong and positive, and that he's overwhelmed by the love and support he's received. His decision to speak openly about his health might just save the lives of many other men. Lewis Mickey, STV News, Musselburgh.
They are some of the building blocks of society: schools, hospitals, roads. But today, a warning from Scotland's First Minister: we're falling behind other countries in money spent on public investment.
John Swinney is urging the Chancellor to relax the rules and allow more borrowing to fund it. He believes that would help boost economic growth and ultimately improve people's lives. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
Construction work on the new Liberton High School campus in Edinburgh is an example of public sector investment. It's costing £67 million but creates an asset at the heart of an area. And at this community cafe nearby, the lunchtime customers were clear about the importance of good facilities being built and maintained.
A lot of people, that's the first thing they want to know, is what are the schools like?
Well, I would love the libraries and the swimming pools and all that kind of thing to stay open. More investment maybe for the kids.
The NHS definitely The number of hospital beds, I think, available now are far less than there used to be.
While this one is well on track, down the years there have been numerous public sector infrastructure projects that have been scrapped, scaled down or delayed because the money wasn't there to pay for them. And that's why John Swinney wants a change in approach. In a speech at the Edinburgh Futures Institute, the First Minister urged the Chancellor to ease the current restrictions on government borrowing.
It would mean that we could support the incredible talented staff of the National Health Service by investing in the beds and the scanners that they need. It would mean that we could transition to net zero by investing in the upgrades to the national grid and to transport infrastructure that are necessary to make decarbonisation a reality in all 4 nations. And because eradicating child poverty is a priority of my government, it could galvanise greater momentum in building affordable homes for the families of children living below the poverty line.
The theory is more investment means more growth, which ultimately brings in more revenues for day-to-day public services. The UK government has said the Chancellor has vowed to lead the most pro-growth Treasury in history and has been clear that it is important we count the benefits of public investment and not just the cost of it. And speaking at an event looking at a 10-year plan for the NHS in England, the Prime Minister voiced his dissatisfaction with the situation he's inherited.
And I know that the last 14 years have been really, really hard. We've had austerity, we haven't had the right money and resources, we've had a reorganisation of the NHS that made no sense and made things worse.
The key now will be what that sentiment translates to in practical terms for the wider economy and whether next week's budget gets things moving in the right direction.
Well, Gordon joins us now. And Gordon, there's a lot of pressure on the Chancellor ahead of her budget.
Yes, Emma, since the summer we've heard a fair amount from Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer about the multi-billion-pound black hole in the public finances. Filling that means tax rises, spending cuts or both. Now, she is somewhat boxed in by commitments made during the election campaign to not raise taxes on working people. So making all of this add up is going to be challenging. John Swinney says he has sympathy for that challenge, but points to investment spending being lower here than in some other countries. There's a technical thing called the fiscal rules set by the last government, which means borrowing can't be more than 3% of the country's economy. Now, what's being put forward today is advancing a different way of calculating that, which would give more headroom for borrowing for investment and potentially generating a more optimistic outlook. We will find out a week on Wednesday if the Chancellor has been persuaded. Emma.
Thanks for that, Gordon. Meanwhile, problems closer to home for John Swinney as more than 10,000 pupils in his constituency were unable to return to school today after the October break because they were shut down in a strike over pay.
Unison members have started 2 weeks of industrial action, demanding a better offer than that accepted by 2 other trade unions. But the Scottish Government says there's simply no more money. Susan Nicholson reports.
Not going to stop till we win it, Swinney! Not going to stop till we win it, Swinney!
There's no doubting the message or its target on the picket line at schools across Perth and Kinross.
More pay! Now!
Some 65 primary schools were closed today and 2 secondaries as Unison members started a 2-week strike over pay. Last month, they rejected a national local government workers' rise of 3.6%, which was accepted by 2 other unions.
10 years, we've not had a pay rise. There's a cost of living crisis. People are struggling, and it's about time we get a pay rise. We do a lot of work behind the scenes that people don't know, and we totally deserve it.
We want an across-the-board pay rise. That's what we asked for in our claim earlier on this year, which is something that the Scottish Government seem to be failing to acknowledge. Several times they've come on and said that all 3 unions have been given what they wanted out of this pay deal, and they haven't.
Unison has targeted schools within First Minister John Swinney's constituency in the hope of putting pressure on him. But the message from the Scottish Government today is that the coffers are empty.
A disruption of industrial action will not lead to any more money being put on the table because, frankly, there is no more money. What we can look towards, though, is supporting local government to get into discussions about what the next 3 years can bring to address some of the issues that Unison are concerned about.
This action is affecting between 9,000 and 10,000 primary pupils and more than 1,000 in secondary. Teachers aren't on strike and learning is being delivered remotely. But there's still huge pressure on parents, many of whom are being expected to oversee homeschooling and continue working. Perth and Kinross Council say 11 primary schools will open tomorrow. 23 will open on a partial basis and 37 will remain closed. Susan Nicholson, STV News.
Just 9 dental practices across Scotland have been given financial support from a Scottish Government initiative set up to close gaps in access. Grants of up to £100,000 are offered for the opening of a new practice or extension of an existing one. The Public Health Minister, Jenny Minto, says it's part of a targeted approach. It comes after figures showed more than 300 dentists took early retirement in the same period. An outdoor activity company has been fined £10,000 for safety failings that led to the death of a 12-year-old boy. Caden Walker from Glasgow drowned after becoming separated from his boogie board on the River Tay in 2019. The schoolboy had stated in a consent form he couldn't swim more than 10 metres. The organiser, Outdoor Pursuits Scotland, admitted to a breach of health and safety legislation at Perth Sheriff Court. A police officer is accused of assaulting a woman during a row over queue skipping at a concert. Tyne McClymont is alleged to have punched and kicked Caroline Walker in Glasgow's Exhibition Centre train station in 2022 after watching Texas at the Hydro. The 29-year-old denies the charge. The charity Lucky You has been getting a boost from a group of lucky lottery winners as they start preparations for the winter. The charity helps people with additional support needs experience farming and learn new skills. As they get ready to move to new land, a group of volunteers got together to build shelters for the animals so they're ready for the cold winter months ahead. Caitlin Hutchinson reports.
As someone with autism, Abby Lee finds that animals can have a calming and therapeutic effect.
Just in love, isn't he?
It's why she spends her free time volunteering at the Lucky You Farm, a charity that helps people with additional support needs experience farming and animal husbandry. She says it's helped her reach her full potential, which is why she and her friends are working hard to make sure the animals are protected from the elements this winter.
Before I couldn't even speak to even some family members, and now with the help of Lucky You I've been able to talk in front of crowds and just meet new people, make loads of friends.
There's wallabies and there's deer and donkeys, which you don't really see wallabies every day, so it's pretty cool.
I have autism myself and it's really helped me come leaps and bounds with my confidence and getting out of the house, and the support I get from everyone around me is fantastic and I've really enjoyed this place.
Every week, 30 young people between the ages of 9 and 22 are supported by the charity.
It works, and it may be emotional, but young people who are disenfranchised, who are neurodivergent, have maybe difficulties in life, they can come and work with us in the countryside, work with animals that don't judge them, and they can actually get qualifications, they can go to work in the countryside. It's an amazing thing to be part of.
And today, the Lucky You team have been joined by lucky lottery winners with a combined wealth of more than £50 million. Their mission, create shelters for the animals ahead of their big move to new land later this year.
We do a few of these things with the lottery people, from planting trees to doing Wendy houses and putting your time in is probably better than throwing money at a charity, although it's nice to be able to do that as well.
It brings a lot of joy to us in our old age and my old age.
For yourself.
I know.
Cheeky sod.
No.
You would put more politely than I would.
No.
All of the hard work here today, building and decorating animal shelters, will make sure that all of the animals here, including Zena, the donkey, will be kept warm and cosy during the cold winter months. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News.
Now, when you think of rainforests, you might think of the Amazon in Brazil or deep in Southeast Asia in places like Indonesia or Thailand. But did you know Scotland is also home to its own unique version? Pockets of temperate rainforests which survive in wetter but cooler climates are dotted across the west coast of Scotland, including at Portavadie.
It's an area that has received global attention after the discovery of the Gibbelula fungus, made famous by the Last of Us video game and TV series. Ollie Dickinson has been finding out more.
Perched on the peninsula at Portavadie lays one of the country's most diverse habitats. What at first appears to be just another Scottish woodland is actually classed as rainforest. An astounding landscape where ancient oak trees burst from quartz rocks and where winding tree branches are home to tens of species of unique plant life.
When I first came here, it just felt like walking through a book of Tolkien's. It's globally important for its lichens and for its mosses and bryophytes, these special little tiny plants that cling to the trunks. But it's also special for all the birds and the pine martens, the mammals, the insects, the flowers, everything that it supports.
The area is classed as temperate rainforest, somewhere that has high rainfall and a steady, slightly warmer average temperature. Volunteers are now learning more about what calls it home. From slime mould plasmodium, groups of cells that come together on rotting logs and are so intelligent they've been used to design subway networks, to Cladonia pixidata or pixie cup lichen. But their star find is this, Gibbelula fungus, made famous by the video game and later the TV series The Last of Us. The fungus eats spiders from the inside out, leaving the exoskeleton whole before erupting out to spread further spores and claim another host.
They're quite fascinating in a slightly gruesome sort of way. I suppose, yeah, I mean, most fungi obviously grow on the ground or on trees and they're slowly rotting down, but it's a dead vegetation and that's all fine. But as soon as they start to get into animals, then that becomes slightly creepy and I suppose a little bit gross as well, maybe.
For all the amazing daytime discoveries, the rainforest also has a nighttime party piece. The biofluorescent lichen that glows in the dark, creating incredible patterns and colours across trees and boulders. But this awesome habitat is facing dangers. Overgrazing from deer, who have no natural predators, means younger plants are struggling to thrive, and climate change threatens the delicate balance this landscape needs to survive.
Many of the epiphyte species, so the lichens and the bryophytes, mosses and liverworts, they're globally significant, they're globally rare, and as I say, Scotland has some of the finest examples of this habitat in Europe. So it's really important that as custodians of these habitats now that we do everything that we can to give them the best chance to survive the oncoming threats and challenges that they face, as well as the immediate threats and challenges.
An area the size of Edinburgh spread across Scotland's west coast is all that remains of our ancient rainforests. Volunteers are now trying to capture data crucial to protecting the future of these hidden habitats of the bizarre and the beautiful. Ollie Dickinson, STV News, Portavadie.
A lot of complex names there. Well done, Ollie. Now from fungi to a fun guy.
See, the week off hasn't helped the scripting, John. Not much fun for Rangers fans at Kilmarnock yesterday, and they certainly let the players know.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
Good evening. Leon Balogun says Rangers fans were right to turn on the players after their defeat to Kilmarnock yesterday, warning his teammates it will only get worse if they don't produce better performances. The 1-0 loss at Rugby Park leaves the Ibrox club 6 points behind Celtic and Aberdeen, with Philippe Clement saying they have no excuses. Here's Ronnie Charters.
Delight for Kelly, despair for Clement. Rangers once again met with anger from the stands as they fell further behind in the title race after defeat in Ayrshire. And as fans showed their frustrations, one player says the dressing room need to buck up their ideas.
That's their right to question things. I mean, like I said, they are the heartbeat of the club. The criticism that comes up after a day like this, I think you have to face it. You have to understand what this club stands for, the history of the club. If you sign for this club, you have to know that there's a lot of expectation, and if you don't live up to that expectation, there might be really uncomfortable moments. And like I said, we made that bed for ourselves and have to lay in it now.
It was a game in which Philippe Clement's men offered very little. Unable to create many clear-cut opportunities against Kilmarnock, who created the better of the chances. And in the 87th minute, Derek McInnes' side scored the winner. Marley Watkins condemning Rangers to a second away defeat of the season.
I don't think any of my players at any point settle for 0-0. 0-0 wouldn't have been the worst result. Getting your clean sheet and you would take positives from the performance, but still felt and still hoped that it was a bit more on the bone for us, and thankfully we managed to get that.
I don't want the excuses about pitches, wind, whatever. We need to focus on ourselves, on the team, on the players, on the new players coming in, to get them at their best level, on the players who were here.
24 hours earlier, Celtic and Aberdeen traded blows in the top of the table clash. The champions scoring a quick-fire double in the first half through Rio Atati and Kyogo to take a 2-0 lead at the break. But Jimmy Tilline's unbeaten start to the season was preserved as Esler Sockler and Graham Shinnie made it 2-2. Aberdeen thought that they had gone one better soon after, but referee Nick Walsh was informed by VAR there was a handball by Duke in the build-up. And the Don striker was involved in a last-gasp clearance at the other end. VAR checked for handball. Duke's goal-line clearance stood, and the match finished a point apiece. This leaves the top of the Scottish Premiership looking like this. Celtic remain at the summit on goal difference, level on 22 points with Aberdeen, with the gap to Rangers back in third, now stretched to 6 points. Ronnie Charters, STV Sport.
Neil Critchley has praised James Wilson after the 17-year-old scored his first professional goal in Hearts' 4-0 win over St Mirren, while Hibs boss David Gray says they need to get results quickly after his team lost to Dundee United and dropped to the bottom of the Premiership. Critchley, who was appointed head coach last week, saw his team go 1-up in the 15th minute through Kenneth Vargas. Goals in the second half from Daniel Oyegoke, Wilson and Blair Spittle ensured that it was a dream debut for the new Hearts boss. Hibs came from behind to lead Dundee United 2-1 at Tannadice, but after Joe Newell was sent off in the 85th minute, United struck twice in added time in the 93rd minute, then in the 99th minute to score a stunning win. Motherwell have slipped from 4th to 5th in the table after their 1-0 defeat at home to Dundee. Rugby and Glasgow Warriors coach Nigel Carolan believes Stormers will be looking for some payback when they face each other for the first time since the Warriors defeated the South African side in the quarterfinals of the playoffs in the URC last season. The Warriors, who picked up 2 bonus points in the narrow defeat to Sharks in Durban at the weekend, have travelled to Cape Town for the second of their back-to-back games in South Africa on Saturday.
I think every team is looking for payback against us from last year, particularly the Stormers. Obviously they came to Scotstoun in the quarterfinal and turned a corner, certainly through that game, and came out the right side and went on to win the competition. So look, I know every time they play against us, it's very hard to be more excited and motivated to play against us.
And that's all your sport tonight, folks. See you again tomorrow.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
Well, Storm Ashley hit Scotland yesterday, bringing heavy rain and wind, but is thankfully much calmer today. Here's Philip with the details.
Hello and a very good evening to you. Well, yesterday Storm Ashley made its way across Scotland, bringing with it significant rainfall and very disruptive and damaging winds. Yesterday, Tyree recorded a wind gust of 78 miles per hour at 8 o'clock last night, with Inverbervie recording 76 mile per hour gusts and South Uist recording 75 miles per hour. Achnagarth saw the highest rainfall total out of the whole of the UK, with 54.4 millimetres of rainfall. Thankfully today it has been a gradually improving picture. Let's take a look at the forecast and what's in store for the rest of this week.
A dry start to the day will become increasingly splashy. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, after a fairly wet and windy end to the weekend for many of us, today we've seen Storm Ashley clearing away to the northeast, and it has been a gradually improving picture today. Unfortunately, for the rest of this week, it is remaining fairly unstable and unsettled weather-wise. Come Wednesday into Thursday, our wind direction changes to a south to southwesterly. We'll be dragging in milder air, so our temperatures will climb a degree or two. But then come Friday, our wind directions change more drastically to a northerly. So we'll be dragging in colder air, and it will be feeling noticeably chillier as we head into the weekend. Back to just now, however, and we've got this cold front moving in from the west. That's starting to pep up a lot of these showers. Some of those will merge together into longer spells of rain. Some of them will be quite heavy. They become fairly widespread. There's still a lot of cloud around, and there is still a bit of a breeze. So temperatures aren't dropping too far tonight. Lows are between 7 and 10 degrees Celsius for most towns and cities. Eventually, a lot of those overnight showers will become more isolated, scattered and confined mostly to the north. So tomorrow's not looking too bad, remaining relatively fine, dry and bright, particularly through the central belt around parts of Ayrshire, Lanarkshire and the Lothians, with temperatures reaching highs of around 12 or 13 degrees Celsius. Then overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, our winds start to pick up strength once again. The worst of the scattered showers will be to the north and the northwest, the best of the drier conditions further south and highs of 14. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, that's all from us for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.
Bye-bye.